my friends, this is the Wizard Podcast, episode 30. This is Dr. Mark Jezanowski. It's been at least a few weeks since I checked in. And if I'm being honest, it's been a few weeks. I think it's more, actually, might be a month of going deep into my own work, doing the work I need to do in my life, navigating the terrain of my life. And recognizing that there are places within my body, places within my mind, that still hold on to stories of fear. And places in my body that automatically respond to certain scenarios in my life from a place of fear. What if? What if? And by taking a step back from the daily ego trip, from the daily gotta commute here, gotta do this, gotta post this, gotta stay in some sort of routine, I'm just trying to allow myself to step outside of the attachments I've created, the story I've created, even if it feels in some ways like it doesn't make sense from that story's point of view. Like the idea of letting go of work, letting go of opportunities, like having a sense of recognition that just because certain things come your way doesn't mean you should go into alignment with certain people, with certain emotions, with certain energies. Really, it's be wise about the stories you go into alignment with. Sometimes people will pay you a lot of money to go into alignment with their delusion, with their story that they desperately need to be right, because if it's not right, if their story isn't true, then they would have to take responsibility for all the choices they have made that has had a ripple effect of harm or negativity or pain, generational trauma. Sometimes we desperately need our stories to be true, so much so that we warp the world around us. We warp reality around us so that we don't have to come to terms with choices we have made out of a place of fear by self-selecting a certain story, by perpetuating a certain story that we need to keep ourselves safe. That story probably started very early in our lives when we needed to warp reality to make sense of what we were experiencing. There are so many things that happen to people in all families and all communities and all cultures that just get swept under the rug. We live in collective denial because we don't want these things to be real. And it's our familial and collective denial that leads to people needing to warp reality in order to accept the fact that they have parents that deny their emotional cries for help when they are being sexually molested by an uncle or, a cousin or a brother or a sister. These things happen. These things are real. These things are the stories that I get to walk next to people who are unraveling these stories and trying to take responsibility for their lives at the same time. So sometimes people are so desperate to have their story be true because their story protects them from so much truth, from so much reality, from so much shame. And that's really the thing. If I had to admit that I've been acting out this thing that I learned when I was 6 or 7 or 8, and I just continued to act it out deep into my adulthood, and it became the medium by which my family emotionally resonates with each other. We live in denial, we live in anger, we live in hate, we live in mistrust. And by we, obviously, I'm talking about kind of the collective we. How many people have those individuals in your family or your friends network that just cannot come to terms with reality? And I realize reality is debatable, but shared experiences, we all have shared experiences, and we've all got those people in our lives that absolutely cannot tolerate the experience of accepting responsibility for choices that they've made from a place of fear. And the sad thing to me is that if every time I've witnessed someone coming to terms with their fear, coming to terms with their denial, I've seen it with a lot of combat veterans. I've seen it with a lot of, profoundly injured families that I've worked with. Whenever someone can truly surrender, truly take a look in the mirror and say, okay, I've been doing this thing to keep me safe from some fear that I don't even fully understand. And I don't want to feel what's beneath it. I don't want to experience what's beneath it. If I experience what's beneath it, I'm going to be overcome with shame, overcome with guilt, overcome with anxiety. And sometimes all it takes is to completely allow oneself to open up and allow the floodgates to open and just to feel what you need to feel and to admit to yourself that you are actually afraid and that you're actually living in fear. And I know people, oh, they're home from the garage sailing. I'll be right back. I'll check back in. A shout out to my mom, Linda. We just call her Grammy. And she's out here staying with us in San Diego for an extended stay, and she sure is being a wonderful Grammy and a wonderful support, and I'm so grateful for her presence here. She's allowed me to breathe just a little bit more. So thanks, Mom. So back to what I was saying, sometimes people are... The difference between perpetuating generational trauma through denial of one's own reality. People deny their own reality, and then they, by extension, deny everyone's reality around them because they can't come to terms with what they feel internally. They can't come to terms with the choices, all the buried bodies, so to speak, of what has been done in order to get through life without having to come to terms with fear or pain. And fear and pain that might be really legitimate from childhood, where they grew up with other injured adults that denied their reality and that did not acknowledge their emotions, did not acknowledge their pain. What I've learned is one of the most profound forms of injury that you can perpetuate, that you can act out, is to completely deny another human being's emotional reality. When we completely deny someone else's reality, it's almost as if they feel like a ghost. People that do this thing we tend to call narcissism, which is just a really fancy way of denial. Narcissism is, I will deny my own reality and I will deny yours to the point where you feel complete misery. In fact, I will delight in denying your reality. It becomes them. It becomes a medium of interacting with the world so that they never have to truly feel the pain. A narcissist is a profoundly injured child that just never grew up and is constantly projecting like arrows perpetual denial. Pulling myself back in. So people tend to develop these mediums for interacting with the world when they're children because they don't have anyone around them saying, hey, here's a better way to deal with this experience. Here's a better way to deal with this moment. I was talking with my mom just the other day about how many children right now, something I'm profoundly concerned about, and to any parents out there with children, to be really mindful of the profound importance of allowing children to play with each other and to socialize with each other. I mean, imagine the impact on a child's immune system by cutting off their social natural social developmental experiences. Children need to play with each other. So all the isolation is not in any way helping our children. It's making it's a profoundly injurious, damaging thing. But where I was going with that is that there's so many children who have such a profoundly difficult home life that are now isolated to those homes. How many children, I mean, tens of thousands, probably millions of children experience school as a place of safety, as a place of solace. They have teachers there that care about them. They have other kids there that just might care about them, even if it's one or two friends. And it's those kids that feel completely unloved and denied at home and completely unloved and denied at school. Those are the ones that really, really fall between the cracks. Those are the ones that are the most profoundly injured, and also the ones that tend to act out in the most profoundly volatile ways at times. So, wow, am I profoundly concerned about the fact that children are missing out on having that one or two or three adults in their life that says, hey, this is how life could look if you interact with it this way. We don't have to act out anger. We don't have to live in denial. We don't have to do that. How many teachers have taught a student who is living in pain from home, hey, we don't have to do it that way? And some of those individuals, sometimes it's sort of a mystery to me. It's an interaction of genetics and a particular type of environment. When a child has been taught that their feelings do not matter, I see it go obviously one of two ways. I see it in therapy all the time. You have people that take on the coping mechanisms of their environment and they become harder, more distant, which is okay to cope in a masculine sort of strong way. But when that becomes that denial thing, when you start to completely warp your reality around yourself, you become the center of that attention, and you can't tolerate any new information that may threaten your perception of self, what keeps you safe. That's when we cross over into that denial pattern that we tend to call narcissism. It's just a word. Remember, narcissism is just a word. It's a pattern of not wanting to acknowledge reality in the present moment because it hurts too much in the body. It threatens too much. So we need to shut down everyone else's reality. So I see some people that grow up in that environment become that to varying degrees. And I would say, remember, these are behavior patterns and personality patterns that all of us tend to experience in one way or another at different times. So remember, it's on a spectrum. And when you're in that extreme of denial and denying other people's voices and reality to protect yourself, circling back, that is one of the most profound forms of injury that I've experienced in my life and that I've unraveled with my clients. People experience physical abuse, sexual abuse, all of that. It's the denial of it that is the most profound. It's the, I didn't do that. What are you talking about? I'm just going to gaslight you until you want to gouge your eyes out in misery because I'm going to completely and totally deny how my behavior is affecting you. I'm going to lie to you. I'm going to cheat on you. I'm going to hurt you. The spectrum of things that I see. I'm going to neglect you. I'm going to physically hurt you. But I am not going to own any of it. I am not going to take responsibility for it. And you notice there are people in very high places who act out that behavior pattern. It's not my fault. I'm not taking responsibility for that. I didn't create this. I didn't do that. They did it to themselves. They're corrupted. They're inherently corrupted. Obviously, I'm speaking in abstractions because clearly this is more than one person in a powerful position. I didn't do it. Not my fault. They did it. They perpetuated it. It's all a ruse. It's all a ruse of division and separation that comes from a place of denial and power that is designed to manipulate us and keep us perpetually acting out this narcissistic nightmare that the world is acting out. I know I'm kind of transitioning, but I'm just flowing. I'm just flowing from thought to thought and allowing it to unravel. How many people in powerful positions, whether they be parents or teachers or coaches or congressmen or presidents or police officers, have devastated another human being's or culture's lives by completely and totally denying the reality of their experience? You know, all the bitching and moaning people do about Black Lives Matter, for example, or vice versa, the bitching and moaning about different groups of people that do foolish things. The only reason those groups of people emerge is because they're individuals on the fringes who tend to experience a lot of suffering, and they're acting out their anger, they're acting out their hate, they're acting out the same way I see individual children acting out against their parents in therapy. They feel like their needs have been perpetually denied. And the powerful people look at the injuries of the common people, and they use those injuries against us to keep us divided and angry. Hey, you on the right, look at what they're doing on the left. Don't trust it. Don't trust it. It's not real. It's not correct. Their emotions don't matter. Flip it over. Look at those people on the right. Look at how ignorant they are. Look at how something they are. They're not right. They're not correct. Don't trust them. People that end up creating these groups, they're coalitions of individuals who have had certain experiences. They tend to be angered and injured by those experiences, and they're fed up, and they decide, hey, I'm going to do something about it. And it becomes more and more extreme the more people selectively attend to those types of groups. In no way am I condoning those types of groups. I'm explaining them. I'm explaining the phenomenon of it. As long as we as individuals allow denial of the experiences of our children, the experiences of our brothers and sisters and our neighbors, no matter what color they are, no matter what socioeconomic background they come from, no matter what gender they are, no matter what, if you are denying the experience of another or simply cannot acknowledge with your own eyes and ears the reality, if you allow yourself to be co-opted by people in powerful positions that create websites and ideas and groups in order to manipulate your fears and your injuries, as long as you allow that to play out as an individual, you are susceptible to manipulation. You sacrifice, in some ways, your own voice, your own ability to choose, really the essence of freedom, refining fear down to a thing that you can relinquish yourself of, and having true freedom of mind. What led me here to sit down today, I was painting this morning. I got up this morning, it's Sunday morning. Maybe I'll try to put in some of the painting we did this morning. I've never done that before, but me and the girls are out painting, having a good old time. And a lot of times painting is one of those things that allows me to clear the space of my mind and body. And every time, whether in meditation or art or getting out in nature like I did last weekend with my friend Joel, every time I'm able to get into a place where I can completely release tension, anxiety, and fear in my body and mind, I look at what's left over. And when I see what's left over, it's much more simplified because it's not all tangled up by all these other life experiences, because I've let go of most of those experiences. I've let go of most of those people. I've let go of most of the I've let go of people who deny their own reality to an extent where it's harmful. And when I'm able to clear the space, I'm able to look at kind of what's left. What are the fears that are left? What are the attachments related to those fears? How can I work on relinquishing that fear? Because that is true freedom. And what I'm learning, what I've been learning in this past month in a much more profound way, is to go deep enough into the shadow work, deep enough into the unconscious, deep enough into fear, that you realize that almost every single thing that your body pulses to an expression of fear is a bit of an illusion, either through our own selective attention or through the training of our parents or the training of our community or the training of our culture that wants us to wrap our mind and body around certain societal rules and norms. That training has taught us to pulse in a certain way. Be afraid of this, be afraid of that, be afraid of this judgment, be afraid of losing this thing, be afraid of, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Be careful. Something I've been talking to my mom a lot about as she's out here and we have these good conversations is just to be mindful of anything that is sold to you from a place of fear. Anybody who creates or speaks from a place of fear is not someone I would ever trust or respect or follow. I don't care if they're a preacher. I don't care if they're a neighbor. I don't care if they're a senator or a leader. If they are preaching and teaching and promoting fear, that is not something I would ever trust. It's not something I would ever follow, because fear is an illusion. It's a construct of combining the danger responses of our limbic brain and our autonomic nervous system in our body. The automatic pulses of the mind and body have become tethered to words and ideas and beliefs and rules and rituals that have been created and co-created by an interaction of power and people pulsing, fear and people. We interact and we act out our fear if we collectively buy into it. So I try to meditate and pray and allow my body to open up and my mind to open up and to consciously relinquish fear, to consciously allow the fear tension and the fear response in my body and mind to release and dissipate. And when you learn to listen to your breath and you learn to notice the sensations of the body and mind without labeling it as anger, fear, anger, fuck them, fuck that, they did this to me, they did that to me, I've been hurt, I've been wronged. If you're able to slow down and recognize that your body is having a fear-based pulse in the moment, and that our automatic response before a second has even passed is to blame it on someone, to project it onto something, to turn it into a story. Oh, that's because of this. That's my depression. That's my PTSD. That's my someone has hurt me. That's because someone hurt me, and that's why I feel this way in the moment. Indeed, as I've said many times before, all of us have been hurt in our own way by the existence, by just existing. Suffering is universal among humans in different ways. I know very, very wealthy, very privileged people, quotation marks, who are suffering profoundly in the tangled web of the lies and deceit and denial that allowed them to get to that place in the first place. So we learn that we have been injured. We can acknowledge that certain things happened to us when we didn't have the tools to protect ourselves, or no one was there to say, hey, that's wrong. You realize that someone is treating you in a way that's just not cool. That's not right. It's not right to lie to your children. It's not right to deny your children. It's not right to manipulate your children. Once we start unraveling that, then we don't have the excuse anymore. And that's kind of the point of responsibility. Instead of acting from a place of a victim, which we see rampant, unfortunately, we've created this whole like victim culture. It's been born out of our own natural tendency toward narcissism and privilege and self-centeredness. I have been wronged. I've been injured. The system is unfair. This is not fair to me. My government's not fair. Someone owes me something. How dare you treat me that way? How dare you not label me the proper way? You should know better. Once you start unraveling that story, once you're willing to take a look in the mirror and realize that you're acting out a story, whether you're on the right or left or middle or up or down or sideways, whatever, once you start gaining the awareness of, oh, I've been telling myself a story to keep myself safe. I'm afraid of acknowledging information that may contradict my story. I'm afraid, so I'm warping my reality the way I did as a child, and I continue to do so because I just don't want to come to terms with my grief and my shame and my pain and my anger and my rage. And again, circling back, the thought that brought me here today when I was painting is, all we really have is the ability to conscientiously respond to the automatic responses of our mind and body. The degree to which you are able to observe and witness the sensations of the mind and body as they emerge in the present moment in the context of what you're experiencing in your life is the degree to which you will act out the emotions in the form of a story, and the degree to which you will perpetuate the ego story that got you here. So if you're sitting there in your home, you're sitting there in addiction, I have some veteran friends of mine I know right now that are struggling with addiction, people that have reached out. I know friends that are struggling with denial, friends that are struggling with avoidance. How did I get myself here? How did I get myself here? What happened that I'm in this dark place in my life? Why can't I stop it? Why can't I stop it? Oh, people fight in rage and tears because they want so badly to stop the suffering in their life. A young man from the 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines who served in Ramadi and Fallujah with my good friend Justin and a bunch of other guys, a bunch of other men I've gotten to know. Young man took his life 2 days ago. Justin and I talked about it yesterday. We were talking about coming to terms with fear and death in our own life and coming to terms and accepting life as it is, learning how to be fully honest with ourselves, learning how to completely relinquish fear, and living from a place of complete honesty in the moment, which sometimes means, oh, I have sadness in my body. I have anger in my body. Oh, wow, the way she said that to me really triggered me. Oh, the way he did that to me, wow, I feel some rage. But it's about relinquishing the fear and being fully honest with what this God-given meat suit, this beautiful vessel that we're wearing, is truly made to do, which is to provide us, it's an instrument that can tune in to the information in the world and the people and the energy and the love around us. When we learn to relinquish fear, when we learn to relinquish the programming of our childhood and the programming of our society that tells us, be afraid, be afraid, be afraid, be careful, you start relinquishing it and you start realizing that our natural way of being seems to be to resonate from love, to be in love, to love from the inside out, to not expect someone to rescue you from your pit of darkness that you're tethered to. It's to realize that we can choose love from deep within, and we can choose to create from a place of love, and we can choose to treat ourselves from love, which is to be fully honest in the present moment, to truly be honest and accepting, and then to resonate that to anyone around us, our children. looking at our little girls in the eyes and saying, hey, it's okay to feel anger. Where do you feel it? Where do you feel it in your body? I watch Olivia and she gets all wound up in anger, and I just say, hey man, where do you feel it? What do you feel? It's okay to feel it. And she's becoming powerful because I see her acknowledging her emotions and acting her emotions out in an honest way. And the other day she wanted to get a surfboard, so we went and got a surfboard, and she got the old man out surfing, and she only let me push her into one wave. I pushed her into one wave. After that, she was done with my help. I watched her paddle out as if she'd been paddling. I couldn't believe it. She's been watching all the days she goes to the beach. She watches people surf. She's been paying attention, and all of a sudden at 6 years old, this honest emotion, this tenacity, this fearlessness in some ways, finds her paddling out on a surfboard and catching these little waves all by herself, and rolling and crashing and crying and getting up and spitting out the salt water and the sand and gritting her teeth and paddling right back out there and doing it all over again. She helped me find myself again. In the past week, Olivia helped me get back in touch with being a child again. That was something Justin and I really arrived at as our conversation yesterday is, as little children, something he said that was beautiful. We just fall asleep where we are. You just fall asleep after you've been playing. And it doesn't matter where you are. You don't contemplate it. You don't think about it. You don't wonder if someone's looking at you or judging you. You just fall asleep where you are because you've been playing so good. And you haven't been in your head, and you haven't been lost in the attachment of fear, and you haven't been lost in some story from work or some negative person you've allowed into your life who's denying you and lying to you and just not treating you with love, treating you with fear. What would it be like to get to that place where you can let go of the stories you tell yourself? You can let go of the fear. You can let go of the danger wrapped in language and wrapped in beliefs and wrapped in ideas to the point where you just can't even accept an alternative point of view anymore. You're not willing to admit that maybe you're not an expert in everything like we all tend to be. I see people posting on Facebook as acting as if they're an expert in all these topics that they're just not, and I'm not. And we're just all of a sudden, we're all experts on mental health and medicine and science and everything. And we've just completely allowed ourselves to be co-opted by the fear thing. We've lost the ability in some ways collectively to critically assess our own thoughts, our own words, our own beliefs, and the beliefs that are foisted upon us by the world around us, the beliefs that are dumped on us by the world around us. We just consume these things. We consume them. We're acting out our ego. We're acting out our attachment. We're living in anger and rage and fear because we've been so victimized, and I'm a victim, and we have so many victims out there on both sides. I love the fact I grew up in rural Minnesota, and I grew up in the country, and I grew up and worked in a coal mine for 2 years and ended up going back to school and becoming a psychologist and then living in San Diego. And I love that I've gotten to experience a broad spectrum of human beings, both in life and through the work that I do. And realizing that all people are just born and raised in part of a story, and they naturally find their way into a certain story by how they selectively attend to the world around them. And just realizing the profound normalcy and similarity between all my friends and neighbors, that may find themselves on the left in San Diego or California, and all my friends and family and neighbors that may find themselves on the right or somewhere in between or on the left in the rural places that I've called home in Kentucky and Minnesota and Wyoming and Utah. And it is profound when you're able to be fully honest with yourself, to start resonating, living, choosing to live from a place of love no matter how much darkness someone else wants to project upon you. To realize that there is a beautiful, beautiful way forward if you can relinquish your fear. And a thought that I was having earlier that I lost and I'm coming back to is what I've been learning in this past month is I've been trapped many times by my attachments that I felt were justified. Someone owes me something. Someone has wronged me. Someone has done something that is absolutely not fair and has broken the rules, and it affected my life. Well, I'm learning that sometimes you have to cut bait and let go, because allowing someone who lives unconsciously, who lives in denial because they cannot come to terms with their shame and their anger and their sadness and grief, it's not worth it to allow people like that to be a part of your life. It's not worth the money you'll make. It's not worth the story you can tell yourself about how cool it was to be in the presence of some celebrity or some thing. It is never worth the amount you will make to sacrifice your soul to someone else's darkness, to someone else's denial, to someone else's... Someone wants to pay you to be part of the story they need to tell themselves so that they don't have to surrender and live in full honesty and just be like all the rest of us, normal people just trying to live one day at a time and one breath at a time. Oh, man. Once you allow the automatic stories that act themselves out in your mind and body to simply release, to surrender them, to acknowledge the fact that what you really do have power over or ability to choose is how you respond to what your body is telling you in the present moment. And the extent to which you have released pain and fear and trauma and all the shit that we've accumulated in our life is the extent to which you can learn to listen to your God-given body as a vessel of wisdom. The body's not wrong. The stories we tell ourselves about depression and anxiety and fear and sadness, they're not wrong. The mind and body are made to learn automatically from experience, and we learn automatically, and no one ever teaches us that we can reprogram this thing. We can retrain this thing. We can relinquish our fear. We can surrender our fear. It just takes letting go. I've been having to let go of some pretty big shit lately. And it's painful. It's painful to let go of things that you feel justified in holding on to, that you feel are going to help you do something. But you know what? It's just not worth allowing your life and your story and your energy and your heart to suddenly be wrapped up in someone else's story, to be wrapped up in someone else's story that they need to tell themselves in order to be okay. We do it all the time. I've done it so many times I can't even count, and I'm just becoming really aware of it. So I practice relinquishing the fear in my body. I practice relinquishing the fear in my mind. I try to clear the space of my mind and body through breathing, through allowing, through acceptance, through yoga. My friend Justin is practicing karmic yoga, which I actually wrote it down. Karmic yoga promotes selfless service without attachment to the outcome. Selfless service without attachment to the outcome. That's what Justin is practicing as a combat veteran who is completely tied up in his story 4 years ago. He's now a teacher to me. I listen to him. I learn from him. I grow from him. And I'm not unnecessarily building him up. He's a rare example of a human being who has completely and totally made the choice to relinquish fear, to relinquish all the stories that he told himself about why he's a victim or why he's injured or hurt, and to live from a place of honesty in the present moment, even if it means feeling pain, and choosing love, choosing joy. Take a couple breaths with me, man. Sincerely relinquish your thoughts. Relinquish the pain in your body. Relinquish the attachment to the story that you're telling yourself. You can notice the space behind your forehead and you can turn it down. Turn down the thoughts. Imagine the gray cloud full of lightning behind your forehead. Imagine it just started dissipating in the warm sunlight. Imagining warm sunshine just dissipating the gray cloud behind your forehead that is so tangled up in so many stories. To me, the only way to true freedom, and this is maybe a big statement, is to completely and totally relinquish fear, totally relinquish darkness, totally relinquish the story you tell yourself. To me, that is the story of Christ. What's the story of Christ? You invite Christ within you in order to achieve salvation, in order to be free, in order to be in Christ and in God. Christ within. I think a lot of the churches, because a lot of the churches have become systems of power, just like corporations, they need to sustain themselves. They need to have certain stories. If the story was, hey, God is inside of you, and you can choose to allow Christ to become you, you can fully become Christ. That Christ is your divine inheritance. And that the vessel, the meat suit you wear, that your soul is within, it's designed to allow the energy of God to resonate fully within you. And that you don't need to say certain mantras, and you don't need to, not that mantras are bad, and not that prayer is bad, just so I'm clear. But you don't need to rest upon, you don't need to tell a fear-based story and relinquish your freedom, relinquish your strength, relinquish all the potential you have as a human being out of fear. That if you don't jump through certain hoops, you can't get to heaven. If you don't jump through certain hoops, you can't be saved. If you don't give a certain amount of money to a certain kind of thing, you're never going to be saved. Isn't that the story we're told by all entities of power? If you just give your trust to us, if you just give your money to us, we'll protect you, we'll save you, we'll give you a 401k, we'll give you a retirement, we'll make sure you're okay. How many people have been completely and totally fucked over by the systems of power that you sacrifice yourself to? You are a breath away from complete and total freedom, which is full honesty with the self. Allowing Christ to become you, which is to allow the divine to become you, which is to allow yourself to completely and totally resonate from a place of love. God is love. You can relinquish it all and be in the present moment, no matter what, and living from a place of love, which sometimes requires compassion, which is love and strength combined. So I'll tell you right now, friends and neighbors, I've been working on letting go of a lot of stuff this month that I do not want to let go of because I'm so justified in it. I'm so justified in it. Someone owes me something. Someone has done something to me. But the reason I got up this morning and painted with my little girls is because I love them so much and they are the center of my life, and I am responsible for how I choose to resonate to be around them. I can be in anger around them. I can be in fear around them. I can be in the tension that I've allowed myself to become wrapped up in someone else's fear and denial. Or I can choose to be like, you know what, man, I'm letting go of that fear. I'm letting go of this person that's trying to manipulate me with money, or manipulate me with lies, or manipulate me by just withholding something. Forget it, man. I'm getting up, I'm getting my coffee, I'm putting a canvas on the wall, and I'm painting with my little girls, and I'm going to live in joy. And I'm going to choose to feel what I feel in my body, and I'm going to allow it to happen, and I'm going to notice it and observe it and look at it. And I'm going to love myself through it, and then I'm going to keep doing that more and more, and I'm going to get rid of the fear more and more, and I'm not going to allow myself to go into agreement with people that are choosing to live in that fear and that denial. And that's my hope for you today. And again, as always, I appreciate you just allowing me to kind of go down these tangents, and sometimes cutting myself off and coming back and getting out of my own way in the moment, trying not to allow the story of Mark, the story that I tell myself of who I think I need to be, who I need to be special and to be loved and to be something. To realize that letting go of that story, letting go of everything I ever thought I needed to be loved, is actually the path to being fully in love and to being fully free. It's a day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath practice of letting go. And that's the beauty. Permission to completely let go in the present moment. I love you. May you find that love within. May you be able to relinquish your fear, to feel your shame, to feel your sadness, to fully allow it to become an expressed voice, to realize that maybe your moms and dads in your community didn't hear you. Maybe your nation didn't hear you. Maybe you felt systemically frowned upon and acted upon and denied and hurt and injured. And maybe that is absolutely true. But maybe the only path through it is to fully and completely and totally relinquish the story of fear and live completely and totally from a place of honesty and truth and love. Love is the most important part of it. In the present moment, imagine instead of a vast network of hundreds of millions of people, billions of people vibrating from a place of fear because some entity of power is withholding, denying, lying, manipulating. Oh yeah, I'll give you your money if you do this. Oh yeah, I'll give you your money if you do that. Oh yeah, you got to pay me this much in order for me to keep you safe. Bullshit, everybody. Bullshit. Anything anyone creates from fear is not truth. It's not from God. It's not love. Peace be with you, friends and neighbors. Have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday. This is Dr. Mark Jesenowski. This is the Wizard Podcast, episode 30. Take care.